Let me really ask you something. What would you do if your teacher, like the head teacher, I'm talking principal, jumped out of his office window in his underwear? You'd laugh, right? Like everybody would laugh. But in this book, it really happens. And the two fourth graders made it happen on purpose. The Adventure of Captain Underpants, written by Dave Pilkey. There's the thing about Dave Pilkey is that he's someone that just couldn't sit still in class. So his teachers always sent him to the corridor. Very popular form of punishment, usually substituted nowadays for something called a thinking chair. You go outside in the hallway or something when you're disrupting the class too much and you kind of just sit and you think. And so he spent a lot of his time in second grade out in that corridor. He was diagnosed with both ADHD and dyslexia, which are two things that sometimes make you a little disrupted in class. So they would have him put his desk out in the hallway every single day. And that's where he'd draw. These hallway comics would make the first editions of Captain Underpants and Dogman. I know that these are some of your favorite books. He wrote these out there. And then they went on to sell so many times. It sold millions and millions of copies. And the fun part about this is that in this book, there are real comics. They're drawn a little badly, I guess, to encapsulate how he felt when he was a second grader. And in these comics and in this book, you can find two names, George and Harold. Meet George Bird and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Harold is the one on the right with his t-shirt and the bad haircut. Flower shop, pick your own roses. George and Harold were best friends. They had a lot in common. They lived right next door to each other, and they were both in the same fourth grade class. At Jeremy Howitt Elementary School, George and Howard were usually responsible kids. Whenever anything bad happened, George and Harold were usually responsible. But don't get the wrong idea about these two. George and Harold were actually very nice boys. No matter what everyone else thought, they were good, sweet, and lovable. Well, okay, maybe they weren't so sweet and lovable, but they were good nonetheless. It is just that George and Harold each just had a silly streak, a mile long. Usually that silly streak was hard to control. Sometimes it got them into trouble, and once it got them into big, big trouble. But before I tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. After a hard day of cracking jokes, pulling pranks, and causing mayhem at school, George and Harold liked to rush to the old treehouse in George's backyard. Inside the treehouse were two big, old, fluffy chairs, a table, a cupboard crammed with junk food, and a padlocked crate filled with pencils, pens, and stacks of paper. Now, Harold loved to draw, and George loved to make up stories. And together, the two boys spent hours and hours writing and drawing their very own comic books. Over the years, they had created hundreds of their own comics, starring dozens of their own superheroes. First, there was Dogman, then came Timmy the Talking Toilet, and who could forget the Amazing Cow Lady? The all-time greatest superhero that they ever made up had to be the amazing Captain Underpants. George came up with the idea. Most superheroes look like they're flying around in their underwear, he said. Well, this guy actually is flying around in his underwear. The two boys laughed and laughed. Yeah, said Howard, he could fight with wedgie power. George and Howard spent entire afternoons writing and drawing the comic adventures of Captain Underpants. He was their coolest superhero ever. Luckily for the boys, the secretary at Jeremy Howitt Elementary School was too busy to keep an eye on the copy machine. So whenever they could get a chance, Harold and George would sneak into the office and run off several hundred copies of their latest Captain Underpants adventure. After school, they sold their homemade comics on the playground for 50 cents each. So who are these two kids? They're world-class pranksters. They make their own comic books, write them, draw them, staple them, copy them, and they sell them at school. That's what Dave Pilkey was doing out in that corridor. Because we're about to do that, I want you to think about the kind of superheroes you might want to create. So I'm going to show you the comic and read the comic out loud. The Adventures of Captain Underpants, written by George Baird, cartooned by Harold Hutchins. The Really Cool Adventures of Captain Underpants. It was a time of darkness and despair for planet Earth. Bad guys had taken over the streets, and all the superheroes in the world were too old to fight evil. Hey! Then came along a new, improved, extra-strength superhero. Tra-la-la! Look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's an egg salad sandwich. No way, I'm Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding wristband, more powerful than boxer shorts, and able to leap tall buildings without getting a wedgie. Tra-la-la! Night and day, Captain Underpants watched over the city, fighting for truth, justice, and all that is pre-shrunken and cottony. Meanwhile, at a nearby elementary school, front page, it was Stinky Taco Surprise Day at the cafeteria. Yuck. Everybody hated it so much they threw it all away. Soon, the cafeteria food came to life. I am the inedible hunk. The monster ran around the school eating everything in sight. Munch. Help! The inedible hunk had just ate up 15 folding chairs and the gym teacher. Oh, not the folding chairs. This looks like a job for Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants shot lots of underwear at the monster, but it didn't do any good. So Captain Underpants took off running. The incredible hunk chased him. Help! And chased him. And chased him. Finally, the incredible hunk got too tired and thirsty to chase Captain Underpants. How about a nice drink of water? So the monster took a long drink from the shiny white bowl when suddenly, flush! Hooray for Captain Underpants! And so the inedible hunk got flushed away and was never heard from again. Tra-la-la, the end. Don't miss our next exciting adventure, Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets, coming soon to a playground near you. So if you were them, what's the first thing that you would do? Whatever you thought of, we're gonna take that to the next step. So we're gonna figure out what they're gonna do to the principal hanging out the window. Chapter 4, Mean Old Mr. Krupp. Do you see the old guy looking out the window up there? That's Mr. Krupp, the principal. Now, Mr. Krupp was the meanest, sourest old principal in the whole history of Jeremy Howitt's elementary school. He hated laughter and singing. He hated the sounds of children playing at recess. In fact, he hated children altogether. And guess which two children Mr. Krupp hated most of all? If you guessed George and Harold, you're right. Mr. Krupp hated George and Harold. He hated their pranks and their wisecracks. He hated their silly attitudes and their constant giggling. And he especially hated those awful Captain Underpants comic books. I'm going to get those boys one day, Mr. Krupp vowed. One day. Very, very soon. That's all you're gonna get for today. So there's the head teacher, and he's really, really mad. What do you think they're gonna do? Because I have a sneaky feeling it has something to do with his underwear and getting something around his neck. Now look at George and Harold. They wanted something and then they got it. But that means they should have stopped? Absolutely not. Not for them. There's a real problem that they haven't noticed yet though. Do you think that Mr. Krupp is going to stop them at all? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But the thing about Mr. Krupp is that you just can't tell him to stop. So what can you do when you have two kids that don't know what no means and a principal that doesn't know when to stop? Don't know what's gonna happen. But that's the best part. George and Harold don't really know either. They didn't read the instructions. So hold on to that idea you had, because later when you get to this book, I think it's gonna surprise you, because whatever you're thinking about, it might be so much worse than that. Now, we're gonna make a comic. We're gonna make a 4-panel comic, and we're gonna create our own superhero and create our own story. It's gonna be the coolest comic ever. We're going to do basically what George and Harold did. Are you ready? Let's go do it right now. I'm going to draw out the making of my hero and how my hero actually became the hero that she is. So my hero's name is actually going to be Cookie La Chocolate. You know why? Because she's going to become the hero that she is because she was baking cookies at night. And sometimes that's just what it takes for you to turn into a superhero. So I think I'm gonna draw out someone baking cookies in the kitchen. So I'm gonna draw a bowl, and then there's gonna be an egg cracked on the side, like this, and maybe a bottle of milk. Then I'm going to color everything. I'm thinking maybe the bowl's gonna be pink. Don't you guys love pink? I love it when my baking supplies are fun, different colors. I have a pink bowl. I think the spatula is gonna be wooden, because that's normally what spatulas are made of. The egg just has to be white. And then flour is going to be this kind of like beigeish tone. It's called almond. I'm gonna do the yolk in the color yellow, and then I'm going to do the label of the milk in this kind of bluish color, sky blue. I'm gonna make the sugar kind of this magenta-y color. And then I'm going to color the countertop. What color should my countertop be? I think I'm going to make it gray. So I'm going to color in my countertop. So I'm just drawing something where they're kind of just enjoying their life, baking cookies at night. Maybe it's a Saturday night and they're going to eat these cookies while watching a TV show. Ta-da! This is my baking scene. It's set at night where it's peaceful and quiet. And then something's gonna happen. What's gonna happen? I'm gonna draw a chocolate chip bag like this. I think the hand should be like a peachy color, right? So like maybe more skin tone. I'm a little tan, so when I draw things, I like to keep my people a little tan. And then I'm going to say that, I'm just gonna say that my superhero's face is a chocolate chip cookie. Because sometimes that happens. And there's really not a lot you can do about it. This is my superhero. She is now the chocolate chip superhero. You know what? I'm thinking maybe the background should be glittery. What color should my chocolate chip madame cape be? Should it be red or should it be brown? I think I'm gonna make the cape red to stay on theme with some superheroes, you know? And then I'm going to color her whole face to be a kind of nice and tan color. So, because I like my cookies a little tan. Do you like your cookies a little tan? I like my cookies a little crispy, so I like them when they come out of the oven a little more brown than usual. What should her outfit look like? I'm thinking because she is supposed to be a cookie kind of hero, that we should stick with the whole cookie theme. And I'm gonna make it a little tan. How's this color? Make it a little brown. This is Cookie Le Chocolate, and she is the greatest superhero of all time. So who are they fighting? They'll be fighting the evil brownie. Look at that. Ah, I love my mature brownie. Ooh, what color should the brownie be? I want it to be a little bit different than the cookie that I've already created. And maybe I'm gonna do something super fun where I mix up two different colors. I'm thinking these two colors. Ooh, or I like this metallic color a lot more. It's called Antique Brass. Maybe the brownie would be a more brassy color. This is what brownie would look like. And this is who my cookie is fighting. This is the color of my cookie. And then the red for the cape that we saw earlier. Ooh, there's a little bit of a different red, but that's okay. I'm gonna do this color to kind of, there's a little bit of streaks of magenta in there for some reason. And I'm thinking that that's gonna symbolize kind of like the chaos that the brownie is causing and how the cookie, Le Chocolate, is going to save the planet. Okay, now that you're done creating this panel, which took me quite some time, you're going to do something that's going to involve some parents and some adults. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut these panels up. They don't have to be perfect cuts, so if someone makes a mistake, don't get sad or don't get mad. You want to cut off the title page and you want to cut off the bottom. And you can cut off the edges, but I don't really mind that they're there. We're going to cut this in half. And then we're gonna cut this way. And we're gonna cut this again one more time. And then we're going to flip them around and mix them around, like this. A good comic can be written and reproduced by anybody. So if I flip these over, I should be able to see the chain of events or how they happen based on these 4 panels alone. So I would say maybe that I look at this picture and I'm thinking there's no chocolate chips here, but there's chocolate chips here. So this came before the chocolate chips, and then she transformed into the hero, and then she started to fight the evil brownie monster. So first picture, second picture, third and fourth. So as we can see, my comic makes a lot of sense. And this is kind of how it flowed. I want you to make your own comic about a superhero and then something that happens and ending up with someone that they end up fighting. I want to see your comics down in the comments below and tell me how you liked my little 4-panel comic. I know this was super long, but I'm sure that this is a super simple process that you guys can do at home. You guys can download these and follow along as I do these, or you can do them on your own after you've watched through this whole video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'm going to see you in another 2 weeks when I have another activity planned that does not involve as many cookies. Bye-bye!